You are listening to Proof Text, a Glossa House podcast exploring Scripture and all things related to it. New episodes are released daily. For more information, check out glossahouse.com and subscribe to our channels on Spotify and YouTube. Welcome and enjoy.
Χαίρετε πάντες, εγώ είμαι Jesse, και τούτες ζων හෙλληνιστί. Hello everyone, my name is Jesse Orloff, and this is Living in Greek. In the previous episode, I talked about the importance of building a strong vocabulary habit to get to fluency. Today, I'm going to talk about a system for helping to manage all of the vocabulary that you need to learn, and that's called spaced repetition. Why do we need a system? Why do we need spaced repetition to learn vocabulary? Well, there's two reasons that I want to call out. One is time. I don't have time to waste time reviewing words that I already know when there are thousands of words for me to learn. I want to spend as little time as possible to make sure that I get that word stuck in my memory so that it will be useful and available for me when I'm reading or listening Scripture. Any time that I waste is time that I could be spending with my family, or time that I could be learning other words, or time that I could be developing other skills that I need to get towards fluency. So that is why time is one of the most important reasons why I would strongly recommend using a spaced repetition system. These systems are built to optimize, to minimize the amount of time that you spend to be able to retain a word. The second reason is vocabulary management becomes a huge burden when you have thousands, even 1,000 words. I mentioned in the previous episode how when I got to about somewhere between 500 and 1,000 vocabulary words, it became really difficult for me to manage. When do I need to review this word? When do I need to see this word again? Ultimately, a good spaced repetition system will take all of that off of your hands. You will never have to think about when should I review this word or that word or that word in order for me to keep them in my memory, in order for them to be accessible when I need them. The spaced repetition system manages all of that burden for you. So I want to talk a little bit about how our brains retain information. What I would say here is I'm not going to give you a full scientific explanation of spaced repetition. There are plenty of wonderful videos out on YouTube or articles that you can find on the internet that will walk you through in detail how that works. What I will simply say is that long-term retention happens best when you learn or when you review words or when you review a fact. This applies more than just language, but to anything that you could learn. Your long-term retention grows when you learn words just before you would naturally forget them. If you can manage to to put off learning a word until just before you would forget it, when you review that word or that piece of information, your brain will hold on to it even more strongly than it did before. And so that means that the time between reviews grows with every successful recall of that word. Knowing that is very important because that helps by allowing you more and more space so that you don't have to keep studying the same thing over and over and over again in very short intervals. You can instead keep expanding the amount of the distance between when you study a word and when you see it again, and that allows you time and space to bring in new words. So my goal, as I kind of mentioned before, my goal is to make it as easy as possible while spending the least amount of time possible to learn and retain all of the words in the New Testament. And so spaced repetition is the tool that I use to do that. And I like to think of spaced repetition as as an engine, really. It's an engine that, I'm going to focus in the context of language learning here, but it's an engine that you feed it words every single day. And as long as you keep feeding it words, it will continue to chug along, chug along, chug along, and get you to where you want to go. And where you want to go is fluency, at least fluency, in my case, fluency in my ability to read the New Testament. So as long as you keep feeding that engine, it will take care of all of the other responsibilities for you maintaining a strong set of vocabulary. It will decide when you see words. It will decide how long before you need to see that word again, based on how well you know that word. It will manage all of that stuff. You just show up. You show up every single day, and you review the words that it tells you to review, and you feed it new words. And if you show up every single day, review the words that it tells you to review, and feed it new words, you will, without any special management of your own, you will progress in your fluency little by little, every single day, until before you know it, you know 5,000 words. So let me talk a little bit about kind of how I've gone about this. In the next episode, I'm going to drill down into the details of how I use a spaced repetition tool called Anki. But today, I just want to kind of talk about the numbers that I've used that have kind of progressed me towards knowing the entire New Testament. So I started, like I said, I started between 500 and 1,000 words that I knew. So I was using a non-spaced repetition, basically flip vocab as I want to system beforehand. And when I moved into Anki, I set my new words a day, new words every day to really, I was doing 10 new what's called cards, and I'll explain that in just a second. But essentially, I was learning 5 new Greek words every single day. Why do I say 10 new cards? Well, I wanted to learn the Greek words both by seeing the Greek word on the front and then learning the English word. So I wanted to be able to recall every time I saw a Greek word, I wanted to recall the meaning in English. But I also wanted to have a really strong recall for words going from English to Greek. So I learned 5 new Greek words every day, and then I would learn 5 cards that were English forward of words that I'd already learned either that day or that week before. And so combining those two allowed me, with 10 cards a day, to grow my vocabulary consistently over time. Eventually, as I got used to the habit, I basically doubled my volume of words so that I was learning 10 new Greek words every single day. And, and that helped me to kind of speed up the time it's taking me to get through the New Testament. When all's said and done, I will have been learning vocabulary for about 3 years to get the entire New Testament into my brain, into a accessible space, so that as I'm reading, words just are there. I don't have to go and consult a lexicon or anything like that. So this is about what I wanted to cover in this video. So what I would say for you, my recommendations for you are a few things. One, go out and learn about spaced repetition and how your brain retains information. I think knowing a little bit about how this works will help you when you get into using a spaced repetition tool, because what confused me in the beginning, I was so used to just picking the words that I wanted to study and deciding, do I want to study the front side of this card or the back side of this card today? When you get into spaced repetition, you don't have any of those choices, really. There are ways you can kind of get around it, but the system works the way it does for a reason. And so you don't really want to be tinkering too much with how it works. You just want to feed it new words, and it will tell you what words to study and when. And so I think if you go out and learn more about how the spaced repetition process works, that will help you when you start getting into the tools. And then I'd say, give it a shot. Get a spaced repetition system. Again, my recommendation is Anki. There are a few others out there, but the reason I recommend Anki is because of how flexible it is. You can build your own decks. You can change how cards look. You can style things. You can add new details to the card that you might want to remember, or in my case, I've added a lot of details that are just for reference, because I will now use Anki as my kind of active translation tool. Like if I'm out talking with someone and I'm like, oh, I forgot what that word is, or I forgot the meaning of that word, I just pull up Anki, I do a search for the word, and I have the information. I've also linked it to parsing information. I've linked it to Katabiblon and LSJ and a few other tools where as long as I can search up that word, I can go get it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share in the comments of this video a link to my deck that you guys can use and start learning. I'll have some default settings in there so that all you need to do is import it into Anki and then go ahead and start learning. And if you change nothing else and you just do the settings that are in there, it will help you progress. If you you can always go and learn about how to configure the settings of Anki to be what you need it to be and tweak that to whatever you need. But I'll give what I think is a reasonable default starting place in the deck that I link in the comments. And again, next week, I'll get into how specifically Anki works and how I use Anki in my day-to-day practice. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you. I'll see you next time.
Interested in growing your ancient language skills but not sure where to start? Glossa House can help. From illustrated readers and short stories to lexicons and grammars, Glossa House offers a variety of resources for beginning, intermediate, and experienced ancient language learners. Head to glossahouse.com today. Glossa House, language resources for the global community.